Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about ordering fractions. First example, super straightforward. Put the fractions in order from least to greatest. I notice they all have the same denominator, so it's very easy for us to say, and I hope you know, 1/6 is the smallest, followed by 2/6, followed by 4/6, and then 5/6 is the biggest. In this example, I don't have similar denominators or similar numerators, so I have to use a different strategy. One of the strategies we've talked about is using benchmarks, and 1/2 is actually one of those benchmarks. So I can look at 2/9, and I know that's smaller than 1/2. I don't even have to look here, but I could. Oh, well, no, it's not on there, but 2/9 is probably about here, since that's 1/8, or sorry, 2/8 and 2/10. I know that 1/2 of 9 is 4.5. 2 is smaller, so I know this is smaller than that. 4/5. It's definitely bigger than 1/2 because 1/2 of 5 is 2.5. 4 is bigger. So using that benchmark, I can say 1/2 is in the middle, 2/9 is the smallest, and 4/5 is the biggest. That works. I just thought I should add, if you don't see that immediately, you could use the fraction strips. 1/2 is here. Let me draw a little line. 1/2. 4/5. 1, 2, 3, 4 is here. And 2/9, although it's not written on this sheet, is about there. So we have the visual here as well that 2/9 is the smallest, only this big. 1/2 is in the middle, and 4/5 would be the largest. Couple ways I'd go about this one. My first thought, since we're just thinking benchmarks, is I'm going to try that again, especially because I noticed that 2/4 is equal again to 1/2. I'm just going to write that underneath so I can remember, okay? 1/12 is smaller than 1/2. It's tiny. You can see that here, 1/12. We have 1/2. And then 4/6, 1/2 of 6 is 3, so that's bigger than 1/2. And we can even show it on the fraction strip. So that's pretty straightforward. 1/12 was the smallest, 2/4 was in the middle, and 4/6 was the biggest. Visual here. The other thing that I noticed for this one, we talked about finding equivalent fractions last time, so changing it so the denominators are all the same. I know I can multiply 6 really easily by 2. If I do it to the bottom, I have to do it to the top. So that becomes 8/12 in order to get the same denominator there. I can also multiply 4 times 3 to get 12. Times 3, 2 times 3 is 6. So then I have, okay, I'm comparing now 1/12 is obviously the smallest, and then 6/12, and then 8/12. So smallest, middle, biggest. A few different ways of doing it. In this last example, my first thought, because we've been thinking benchmarks, is okay, 4/6 is bigger than 1/2. 1/3 and 2/11 are both smaller. My gut tells me that 2/11 is going to be smaller than 1/3 because 1/3 is pretty big right here. It's almost as big as 1/2, whereas 1/2 of 11 is like 5.5. And it's not on my fraction strip sheet. You could get one like that. But I see that 2/12 is right here, which is bigger, or sorry, much smaller than 1/3. So 2/11 is going to be even smaller than that. So I'm already quite certain 2/11 is the smallest, then 1/3, and then 4/6. Another way I'm thinking, 11 is a really awkward number to multiply to make something similar, but I could compare these two. I could change that, times 2 times 2 to 6. Something I notice now, I have the same numerator. So what's bigger, 2/6 or 2/11? I split my pizza into 6 pieces and give you 2, or I split it into 11 pieces and give you 2. Definitely 2/6. So the 1/3 is definitely bigger than the 2/11. And we already knew that the 4/6 was bigger than the 1/3. So just a few ways you can go about it. There's you have to use different strategies for some of these questions. Think about what's the easiest way or the way that suits you best to get your answer. Good luck.